What's up? I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's time for our brand new show, Minnesota Sports Rank 'em, the show that settles debates and starts new ones. Episode 1, what are the 3 biggest impacts of the D'Angelo Russell trade? Diving into that on the inaugural episode of Minnesota Sports Rank 'em. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, these are the details. The Minnesota Timberwolves trade D'Angelo Russell and his expiring contract for point guard Mike Conley, role player Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and 3 second-round picks. Here's the number one impact of this move. The Wolves front office is rolling the dice again. Yes, this is not the first time, obviously. Rudy Gobert deal was a huge roll of the dice. Tim Connolly comes in, he shakes him up, he blows on the dice, he throws them on the table. The Rudy Gobert deal happened. Now I think this is almost trying to mitigate for the Rudy Gobert deal, but it is another roll of the dice. A few bad rolls of the dice in any sport, managerially speaking, and you could be broke. They roll the dice with the Gobert. They gave up a lot of the glue that made up last year's team. Now, this roll of the dice is a little more friendly because you bring in some assets. You bring in Mike Conley, good team player, veteran point guard. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a role player, not sure what his role is going to look like, and then 3 second-round picks. So while this roll of the dice indeed could work out, it is not a guarantee to work out this year, and it could have negative consequences in the short term. Why? You are giving up a guy in Russell who was slashing 49% field goal, 43% three-point shooting, 90% free throw shooting since the first game of December. That is an absolute tear, and that is an offensive piece that will hurt you to give up, at least on one side of the court. Mike Conley is scoring the least of his career since he was a rookie, just over 10 points a game. There could be an offensive fallout, and you've got 24 games to figure this thing out. The Timberwolves are in play-in position as we speak right now, and the Western Conference is a rising tide. You look at the last 10 games, you've got a lot of teams that were treading water around 500, starting to play better basketball. The Clippers, the Mavs, the Suns, the Warriors are going to take off. The Timberwolves are not going to be able to tread water much longer and make any headway in this conference. And then the trade deadline happens. The Wolves had to keep up. They had to do something most likely. But look at the Mavs. They add Kyrie Irving. Look at the Suns. They add Kevin Durant. And look, even the Lakers think they're going to inject something in their team by adding D'Angelo Russell and Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley. So the Western Conference is not going to stop for the Timberwolves as they try to adjust to this new reality. It's been a season full of new realities and adjustments. First, Gobert gets in. They struggle. Then they lose Cat. They have to adjust for that. Then they lose Cat and Gobert. Now you have to adjust without D'Angelo Russell. So if this takes even 10 games for the Minnesota Timberwolves to get well adjusted to this now Mike Conley system where the point guard is a little more of a distributor, a little more off the ball, that could hurt your playoff chances. The Wolves could get left behind while they wait for Cat to come back and fill that offensive void. That means you could be a play-in team. That means your season could be over much more quickly than you expected it to be when the season began. And what happens when expectations aren't met in the NBA, which is an instant gratification sport, and the Timberwolves have new owners that want to see results right now? That's when people get fired. That's when people get disgruntled. And the Minnesota Timberwolves have a coach who might be in hot water if things don't go well. They've got a player in Cat who has seen so much change go on in his tenure in Minnesota. For the most part, he has stayed loyal. Is that going to be permanent? We don't know. The Timberwolves just traded one of his good buddies, D'Angelo Russell. We'll see what kind of impact that has on that relationship. But this is a roll of the dice, trying to rescue this season. Is it guaranteed to work out? Not necessarily. Before I tell you more about how the fit could salvage this deal for the Minnesota Timberwolves? I'll tell you about FanDuel Sportsbook that brings you today's episode of Minnesota Sports Rankem. FanDuel is the #1 sportsbook in America, and they're the official sports betting partner of Locked On, and they're your way to bet on Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. Get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from money line to point spreads to who scores the first touchdown. Seriously, thousands of lines that you can bet on for Super Bowl 57. Use the FanDuel Sportsbook app, which is safe, secure, and easy to use. And best of all, you get paid your winnings instantly. Join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we talked about how this roll of the dice on Mike Conley for D'Angelo Russell could serve to blow up in the Timberwolves' faces. Another attempt to reshape this roster not working out could be fatal for this franchise, but this could also be a really good fit. Let's talk about some of the pieces involved here. So the glass half full approach. Mike Conley might be the perfect point guard to empower the other stars on this team. Think about how well functioning the Timberwolves offense is when Jordan McLaughlin is on the floor. He rotates the ball. He drives and kicks. He runs set plays. He's the anti-ISO ball. And everything just seems under control because he's so poised. He replaced D'Lo in the playoffs. Don't forget that. Chris Finch turned to McLaughlin, a light-scoring, small, diminutive guard in the place of D'Angelo Russell, who we just said can score or can shoot 50, 40, 90. That's the kind of player McLaughlin is. Now, imagine if you have Conley playing when McLaughlin's not, and you have those two as your top two ball handlers on the team. Conley is far less demanding of usage than D'Angelo Russell. 8.7 field goal attempts per game this year. D'Angelo was taking 5 more than that, around 13.5. So what does that mean? How do you fill that void offensively? You got to turn to Anthony Edwards, first of all. And you always watch Anthony Edwards, and you feel like, as good as he is, there's still something left on the bone. He could always be a little more assertive and doesn't always have that opportunity because D'Angelo Russell takes a lot of shots on possessions where he doesn't even pass the ball. Anthony Edwards, last 30 games, is averaging 27.7 rebounds, 5 assists. He's slashing 47% field goal, 37% three, 78% free throws in those 30. Get him more usage, and I think you're going to like what you see. He's shown the ability to effortlessly put up 30-plus points a game. Give him those extra 5 shots a game. Good things will happen. How about a point guard who's familiar with Rudy Gobert? Mike Conley played 3 years with Rudy Gobert in Utah. He's going to know how to execute that pick and roll. He's going to know how to execute that lob play where Rudy can get involved more on the offensive side of the court. The chemistry between those two could be the sneaky, intangible factor that makes this a plus for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, with McLaughlin healthy, you have a starter in Conley and a backup in McLaughlin, 2 point guards that are going to keep the ball moving. They're going to keep Edwards involved. They're going to make sure that when Cat comes back, he's involved. Honestly, I'm more worried about Cat and Gobert coexisting here down the road than I am with Conley adjusting to this offense, but that's another conversation. But this fit with Mike Conley could enhance the Timberwolves offense. And hey, I guess, I don't know if this is evidence, but you saw him score 143 in the first game that Russell was out, and that's before they got Conley in the mix. Impact number 3 of the D'Angelo Russell move. It is savvy for business. Did anybody seriously look at the Timberwolves situation and say that D'Angelo Russell was a long-term fit? No way. No way was that ever going to be the case. Your head would be in the clouds if you thought that. When you're paying Gobert what you're paying him, when you're about to pay Ant Edwards what he's worth, and when Cat's Supermax contract kicks in, and oh yeah, Jaden McDaniels with a pretty generous extension probably coming down the pipeline, where was there going to be room for D'Angelo Russell, who has been so erratic, so enigmatic, getting benched in the playoffs? That was not going to be a fit. Now, you could argue that if Gobert's contract could be moved, maybe there's room for a D'Angelo Russell. But after this front office and Tim Conley went and got Gobert and gave up what they gave up, you think they're going to give up on that experiment in less than 1 year? Not a chance. Not when his value is this low, especially. D'Angelo Russell was always going to be the sacrificial lamb. So would you rather play it out with D'Angelo and get nothing, or would you like to get, a little something that can help you this year and next year? Think of it this way. The Wolves have now parlayed Russell into Conley, Alexander-Walker, and 3 second-round picks. So forget about the second-round picks. They could turn into something down the road. Alexander-Walker, maybe you give him a qualifying offer and you get him next year as well. But Mike Conley is now another tradable piece that you have next year. So either you play through the season with him, things go well, you make the playoffs, and it's great. Or maybe Mike Conley isn't the perfect fit. You have someone in line that can play instead of him. Okay, you trade Mike Conley. Then you've turned D'Angelo Russell basically into 2 big trades. And that is a nice little piece to have in your back pocket as you try to reacquire the assets that you lost in the Rudy Gobert deal. The Wolves would not be able to have another contract like that on their books if they just flat out got rid of D'Angelo Russell. Why? Because we already explained it. Cat contract, Gobert contract, McDaniels contract, Ant contract. This is one of the last chances they'll have to leverage a big money deal into potential assets. And with Conley on the roster, that is a possibility. So even if our first scenario comes to fruition, if things don't go well, if things blow up in the Timberwolves' face, if they lose in the first play-in game and are eliminated without even getting a playoff series this year, you still have the asset, Mike Conley, under team control for the offseason and next year. And that is a feather in your cap as you look to make moves in the offseason, because there's a lot of tanking teams out there who might want to acquire a big expiring contract and even give you something of value. So that is a valuable contract slot business-wise, and it gives you a really nice hedge in case things don't work out with Mike Conley, the player. You still have Mike Conley, the contract. So what do you think about the first episode of Minnesota Sports Rank 'em? Leave a comment below. What else would you like us to rank? We're going to have a football-less summer. Plenty of other sports going on. Should we keep it on football? Should we talk hoops? Should we talk baseball? We can do anything on this show. It's Minnesota Sports Rank 'em, the show that settles debates and starts new ones. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Can't wait to talk to you again on Locked On Sports Minnesota.